Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss Civics Class 8, Chapter 3, and the title of the chapter is Why Do We Need a Parliament? The Parliament in India is called Sansad. We know that government has three organs. हम लोग जानते हैं कि गवर्नमेंट के 3 organs हैं. The first organ is the legislature for making laws. The second organ is the executive for implementing the laws. And the third organ is the judiciary for deciding the disputes. The parliament is the legislature in our country at the national level. It means the parliament is the highest law-making authority in our country. It also means it is the highest level of legislature in our country. And we are a democratic country. So we must know why do we need a parliament. हमें parliament क्यों चाहिए? हमें legislature क्यों चाहिए? आंसर है कानून बनाने के लिए, to make law, because the main function of legislature is to make laws. So we are going to discuss why do we need a parliament in a democratic country like ours. So the parliament building of India is situated in Delhi. It's also called the Sansad Bhavan. The parliament in India or the Sansad in India has 3 organs. The President of India, the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. The Rajya Sabha is also called the Council of States and the Lok Sabha is also called the House of the People. We know that India is a parliamentary democracy. Democracy is a government of the people, for the people and by the people, as Abraham Lincoln has defined. Democracy is a government in which every individual has equal share. It is a kind of government, it is a type of government in which rulers are elected by the people. People are the source of power. Democracy is of 2 types, direct democracy and indirect democracy. Direct democracy, where people elect the government directly, elect the rulers directly. Indirect democracy, where people elect the representatives and representatives make the government. So this is indirect democracy. Now, indirect democracy is the most popular form of democracy in the world today. But we have to remember here, the indirect democracy is also of 2 types. One, the presidential form of indirect democracy. It is in the USA. In this type of democracy, we find only one person is the head of the state and head of the government of the state both. The President of America, the President of the United States of America is the head of the state, that is the United States of America, and he is the head of the government of the United States of America. On the other hand, in the parliamentary form of indirect democracy, the head of the state is one person and the head of the government of the state is another person. For example, India. In India, the head of the state, that is India, is the President of India. And the head of the government of the state, that is India, is the Prime Minister of India. So, in the parliamentary form of democracy, in the parliamentary form of indirect democracy rather, two heads are there. One head for the state, the other head for the government of the state. India is, as I said, the parliamentary form of indirect democracy. I hope this much is clear to all of you. The kind of parliamentary form of democracy India is having, in this kind of democracy, there are three very important points. And the first point is, in this form of democracy, people are the source of power. Because people have the right to elect the representatives, and the representatives make the government. It means people make the government indirectly, people control the government indirectly, and people change the government directly. Now, the second important thing is participation in decision making. In the parliamentary form of democracy, people participate in decision making process through their representatives. Because their representatives, elected representatives, they participate directly in making of the laws. And those representatives have been elected by the people of this country. It means the people indirectly, or you can say through their representatives, participate actively in decision making or law making. The third point is the consent of citizens. Citizens exercise universal adult franchise. Citizens elect the representatives, and the representatives are the members in the parliament. So, the parliament, which is having the representatives of the people, makes laws. कानून बनाती है पार्लियामेंट, संसद. और संसद में जो चुन के लोग जाते हैं, इलेक्ट होकर लोग जाते हैं, वो सिटीजन्स के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स होते हैं. So whatever they are doing in the parliament, that is the consent of the citizens. ये citizens के consent से ही होता है. Otherwise, if the representatives go against the consent of the citizens, then in the coming elections, in the next elections, people are not going to elect them. So, the consent of the people in the parliamentary form of democracy is very, very important. Why? Because people are the source of power. Citizens are the source of power. We are going to discuss the importance of parliament. And the first point is the best institution in any democracy. Parliament is the highest law-making authority in any country, any democratic country. So, the parliament consists of the members elected directly or indirectly by the citizens, when citizens exercise their right to vote or universal adult franchise. The second point is the parliament enables citizens to participate in decision making. As we have discussed earlier, in the parliament, the members are elected directly or indirectly by the citizens. Like in our parliament, in the Rajya Sabha, members are indirectly elected by people, and in the Lok Sabha, members are directly elected by the people. So, in the parliamentary system, through the parliament, people, citizens participate in decision making through their representatives. We have elected our representatives, and representatives are taking decisions. So they are taking decisions on our behalf. We have authorized them to take decisions on our behalf by electing them with majority of votes. Third important thing about parliament is it enables citizens to control the government. People control the government, citizens control the government. How? Through their representatives. When the government is doing something wrong, then members in the parliament who are representatives of the people, who are authorized people by the people, by the citizens, they ask questions. They ask questions on various topics in the parliament, in the question hour, in the 0 hour. By asking questions and by many more methods, they control the government. Fourth point is the parliament is the most important symbol of democracy. In democracy, as we have discussed earlier, rulers are elected by the people. The government is elected by the people. It is the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And that is why we say that the parliament is the most important symbol of democracy. The elected representatives of the people are in the parliament. It means the people authorized by the people to form the government, to make the law, are in the parliament. It means the parliament is the most important symbol of democracy. People are the source of power, and that is reflected in the parliament. Parliamentary system is a feature of our constitution also. Our constitution establishes India as a parliamentary form of government. Our parliament is called Sansad. It has three organs we have discussed: the President, the Rajya Sabha, and the Lok Sabha. Or if we say it has two houses, the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. The members in the Rajya Sabha are indirectly elected by people, and the members in the Lok Sabha are directly elected by people. So, the parliamentary form of government, or the parliament, is one of the features of the constitution of our country. Now the question is, why should people decide? People should decide because it's democracy. And in democracy, people are the source of power. Democracy is the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. I have told you previously also, earlier also. People elect their representatives, and representatives form the government. If people want, they can change the government in the next elections. People control the government through their representatives in the parliament. That is why people should decide. People should decide because people are the source of power in democratic country. Why people should decide in a democratic country? We'll see one by one. The first reason is the freedom struggle changed the situation, the approach of people. When people got united, belonging to different caste, creed, language, region, religion, they got the feeling of Indianness, Bharatiyata. They got the feeling of unity despite many diversities. They got strengthened. They got the feeling of patriotism. They got the feeling of the source of power. We were under the British, and the British had been following democratic form of government, parliamentary form of government. So, the people from India who had been participating in the freedom struggle also learned the parliamentary form of democracy from the rulers who were the British. The second point, people criticized the British government and put demands. When people had been fighting for independence against the British, they had been putting demands. They had been putting demands through the Indian National Congress. They had been putting their demands through the Indian Muslim League. They had been putting their demands through the Communist Party of India. They had been putting demands to the British through different platforms. And that is how they learned the parliamentary procedure. How to create demands, how to put demands, how to put pressure on the government to consider demands, to grant those demands. That we learned through our participation in the freedom struggle against the British. These two things. Which two things? Number one, The freedom struggle changed the situation, the approach of the people of India. And number two, people criticized the British government and put demands. How? Let us see this. People should decide because point number A, the INC, Indian National Congress, which was founded in 1885 in Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit Pathshala, Mumbai by A.O. Hume, Ellen Octavian Hume, demanded three things. Number one, elected members in the legislature. Number two, the right to discuss the budget. Number three, right to ask questions. So this is A. These 3 points are under A. People should decide because point number B. And point number B is the Act of 1909, the Indian Council Act or Morley-Minto Reforms Act. This Morley-Minto Reforms Act or the Indian Council Act did two things. Number one, it allowed for some elected representation by the Indians. Indian representation in the assemblies. Okay. Under this act only, for the first time, an Indian member was included in the Viceroy's Council, and that Indian member was Satyendra Prasanna Sinha. Okay, point number two, but didn't allow for all adults to vote. This act, Morley-Minto Reforms Act or the Indian Council Act, didn't allow all adult citizens of India, people of India, to have the right to vote. This was very important. People should decide because point number C, India is independent democracy. We got independence from the British on 15 August 1947. आप सब लोग जानते हैं. And we have been following the parliamentary form of indirect democracy. That also you know, ये भी आप जानते हैं. So, under point number C, there are 4 important things. Number one, that our democracy is of the people, for the people and by the people, means people are the source of power. We are not subject, we are citizens. We are the source of power. We form the government, we control the government, we change the government. Point number 2, source of power in democracy, people. Of course, just now I have told you, we are the source of power. We exercise our right to vote, universal adult franchise. We elect our representatives, and through our representatives, we elect the government. Okay? And if required, we change the government also. We control the government, we change the government. Of course, we make the government, we are the source of power. Now, the third thing is people from various backgrounds participated in the freedom struggle. When we had been fighting against the British for our freedom, people from various caste, creed, language, region, religion had been participating as freedom fighters. So they all have contributed in the freedom struggle of our country, and they all know the values of democracy. The fourth important thing is freedom, equality, participation in decision making. This all people are aware. People of India are aware of all these things. We believe in freedom, we believe in equality, and we believe in our participation in decision making because we participate in the process of decision making through our representatives. We elect our representatives to the parliament, and in the parliament, they discuss, they debate, okay, and then they take decisions. People should decide because point number D. Point number D is the abilities to participate in decision making. Through our freedom struggle, we have learned the sense of decision making, the process of decision making. The British had been our rulers and they are democratic country, parliamentary democracy. We have followed the pattern of parliamentary democracy, of course, from them only. हम लोगों ने parliamentary form of democracy उन्हीं लोगों से सीखा है और उसी को हम लोगों ने follow भी किया है. इसमें आती हैं 3 बातें. Number 1, the experiences of the colonial rule. Under the British, we have got the training of the parliamentary process. After the revolt of 1857, when the Government of India Act 1858 was passed and the post of Viceroy was created, Secretary of State was created, we were now under the British directly. Whatever rules were implemented in India after that, those rules were passed by the British Parliament. So, gradually, the Indians also participated in the parliamentary activities. Of course, in India, legislature activities, but of course in India. Indians got gradual training under different acts, different provisions. Okay? And then we also got experienced in that. Then the second thing is participation of people in the freedom struggle. People of India participated in the freedom struggle, and when we were participating in the freedom struggle through any organization, every organization was having its own set of rules and regulations, and all the members in the organization had been following those rules and regulations. Of course, all the organizations which were fighting for independence were functioning on the basis of parliamentary values. So, as freedom fighters also, we learned the democratic values. 3. After independence, subject to citizens. On 15 August 1947, we got independence, and after getting independence, we were not subjects, now we were citizens. Under the British, we were subject. After independence, citizens means source of power. Now we had the right to vote without any discrimination on any ground. And when the Constitution of India was implemented on 26 January 1950, we became a republic. And in 1952, when the first general elections were held in India, we exercised universal adult franchise, right to vote. And when we exercised right to vote, we proved we were not subjects, we are citizens, source of power. Hope this is clear to all of you. And the next is required government sensitive to the dreams and aspirations. After getting independence, we required a government which remains sensitive to the dreams and aspirations of the people. A democratic government must be a welfare government, and if it is a welfare government, it will definitely be sensitive to the dreams and aspirations of the people, dreams and aspirations of the freedom fighters, dreams and aspirations of the future generations. Number 2, required government sensitive to the needs and demands. Needs of the people and demands of the people. Government must be sensitive. That kind of government we required at that time. Then we required a concrete constitution base of democracy. To run a democracy, to lead a democracy to brilliant success, a good constitution is required, and the people of India framed their constitution, after the recommendations of the Cabinet Mission Plan 1946. The makers of the Constitution, the Constituent Assembly of India, took 2 years, 11 months, 18 days time to frame the Constitution of India. The Constitution was implemented on 26 January 1950, and we had become a republic. Then we need the universal adult franchise by the Constitution. In the Constitution of India, every citizen has been given equal right to vote. One person, one vote, one value. And when it is one person, one vote, one value, we say it is universal adult franchise. Those citizens of India who have completed 18 years of age have got the right to vote. Earlier, it was 21 years, now it is 18 years. From 21 years to 18 years, it was made in 1989 by 61st Amendment, and it was exercised first in 1980 elections. The electronic voting machine, EVM or electronic voting machine. These voting machines were very first time used in Kerala in 1982, but on few polling stations on experimental grounds. But for the first time EVMs were used throughout the country in 2004 general elections. The use of EVMs saved 1,50,000 trees. I mean, these many trees would have been cut for 8,000 tons of papers for printing the ballot papers. That is the marvelous advantage of the use of the EVMs, the electronic voting machines. People and their representatives. People elect representatives and representatives form the government, that is indirect form of democracy. That is indirect form of democracy in the world at present. Now our democracy. The first thing about our democracy is the idea of consent. The idea of consent is our takeoff point. The main point of our democratic pattern of government is the idea of consent. The democratic government formed in India is on the basis of the consent of the people. One person, one vote, one value, universal adult franchise. Desire, approval, participation of people. Number 2, desire, approval, participation of people. Desire of the people, approval of the people, participation of the people in decision making, in taking decisions. Decisions are taken with a lot of time after so many discussions, so many debates. But the decisions are often very correct in democracy. Now, the third thing is every citizen is important in decision making. Why every citizen? Because every citizen has got right to vote if he or she has completed 18 years of age, and every citizen has one vote and that one vote has one value. So there is equality before law. Fourth thing is trust of people, a must for all democratic institutions. Trust of people. People must have faith in democratic values. People must have faith that in democracy they will remain the source of power. They have the power to elect the government. They have the power to change the government. They have the power to control the government. They are the source of power. People must have respect, must have honor, must have faith in all democratic institutions, whether it is legislature, executive, judiciary, or any other autonomous democratic institution. Now, how does the individual give approval to the government? This is the question. And the answer is through active participation in elections for electing representatives. If people actively exercise their right to vote, the universal adult franchise, that is having one person, one vote, one value, okay, then the democratic values are automatically strengthened. Why? Because people through elections, through participation in elections, through active participation in election for electing their representatives, okay, they give approval to the government. Elections. Let us see some points about elections in a democratic country, in a parliamentary form of democratic country. The first thing is, through elections, people elect representatives to the parliament. And one group, that is the majority political party, forms the government. I mean, if we take the example of the Indian Parliament, in the Lok Sabha especially, the House of the People, there are 543 seats. To get majority, 272 seats are required. The political party which gets 272 seats gets majority, and that party is authorized to form the government. And the third thing is the parliament guides and controls the government. In the parliament, elected representatives of the people are there. They ask questions to the government. They control the government. They guide the government. They support the government if the government is doing right. They criticize the government if the government is doing wrong. It means people elect representatives. This is number one. Number two, people form the government. And number three, people guide and control the government. The role of the parliament. What is the role of the parliament in a democratic country? Let's come and see. The parliament is an expression of the faith in the principles of democracy. If you are having a parliament in your democratic country, it means it's the guarantee you do have faith in democratic values. The parliament reflects the democratic values in a country. There are some points. Number one, participation by people in decision-making process. This point we have discussed many times. In a democratic country, in the parliament, representatives elected by the people, they participate in law-making process, they participate in government process, and they participate in the amendment to the constitution process also. The second thing is participation by people in the government by consent. The people who are elected by the people, the representatives who are elected by the people, or the representatives from the majority holding party in the parliament, they form the government. It means they are running the government with the consent of the people because people have elected them. That is also clear, I think. Parliament, that is the Sansad of our country. The parliament in English, and in Hindi we call it the Sansad. The parliament, that is the Sansad, it has three organs as we have discussed in the beginning of this lecture also. The first organ is the president, the second organ is the Rajya Sabha. It is also called the Council of States. It is the permanent house because it is never dissolved. The third organ is the Lok Sabha, that is called the House of the People, and it is the temporary house but because it can be dissolved. The Rajya Sabha or the Council of States. Let's see about the Rajya Sabha. The House of the Representatives of the States of India in the Parliament. The Rajya Sabha has maximum 250 seats. Out of 250 seats, the elected seats are 238, nominated seats are 12, and these 12 members are nominated by the President of India with the aid and advice of the Prime Minister of India. Okay, that is, you can say, the Council of Ministers of India headed by the Prime Minister of India. Now, these Rajya Sabha members are elected members. Now, these Rajya Sabha elected members are elected by the elected members of the legislative assemblies of various states, the chairman, that is the ex officio chairman, you can say, the Vice President of India. It means whosoever is the Vice President of India is going to be the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. The Vice Chairman of the Rajya Sabha is elected by the elected members of the Rajya Sabha. Term of the members, 6 years. Every elected member has a term of 6 years in the Rajya Sabha, but we have to remember one thing, 1/3 members every second year, they retire, they complete their term, that is 6 years. That is why we call it permanent house because it is never dissolved. Now about the Lok Sabha. The Lok Sabha, the House of the People. The House of the People of India in the Parliament is the Lok Sabha. It has maximum 552 seats. Out of these 550 seats are elected seats and 2 are nominated. These 2 nominated are by the President of India, but the elected members are elected by the citizens of India who have completed 18 years of age, that is through universal adult franchise. The Speaker of the Lok Sabha is elected by the elected members of the Lok Sabha. The Deputy Speaker also elected by the elected members of the Lok Sabha. The term of the House is 5 years, every member 5 years, and it is a temporary house. It can be dissolved. But we have to remember here one thing, the 2 nominated members by the President of India in 2019 by 104th amendment in the Constitution of India, this system has been abolished. Now, the 2 members from the Anglo-Indian community nominated in the parliament, nominated in the Lok Sabha, this system has been abolished. Okay, this amendment bill was passed in 2019 but got effected in 2020. Role of the parliament. What is the role of the parliament? In the beginning itself, we have discussed the parliament is the highest law-making authority in our country. कानून बनाने की सबसे बड़ी संस्था हमारे देश में पार्लियामेंट है, संसद है. A, point number A, to select the national government. Under this, we have to know the following facts. First, majority holding political party in the Lok Sabha forms the government. Means whichever political party gets more than 50% seats in the Lok Sabha forms the government. And if no single party gets majority in the Lok Sabha, then an alliance of two or more than two political parties, okay, they make the government together, and that government is called the coalition government. NDA is an alliance, National Democratic Alliance. UPA, United Progressive Alliance. These are the two famous alliances. At present, NDA, National Democratic Alliance, led by Bharatiya Janata Party, is in power in our country. Now, to get majority, how many seats a political party or an alliance should get? It is 543 divided by 2. Okay, 272 minimum elected members, okay, a party should get to get majority. Then coalition government, as I have told you, no single political party gets majority. Then two or more than two political parties make an alliance, that is the UPA, the NDA and like that. And if they get majority, that is 272 seats, they form the government and run the administration. A, to select the national government. Under this, some more points are there. Then the main function of the Lok Sabha is to select the executive. Executive means the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Then the executive implements the laws made by the Parliament, and the executive, the Central Council of Ministers, that is the government of India. The Prime Minister is the leader of the ruling party in the Lok Sabha. He, I mean the Prime Minister, selects the ministers and the President appoints those ministers on their posts. B, to control, guide and inform the government. This is the second important function of the Parliament. And under this, there are some points. By asking questions in the question hour, the Parliament controls the executive, I mean the Prime Minister and the Central Council of Ministers. Then the opposition parties, they also play important role. The opposition parties appreciate the government when the government is doing good. They criticize the government when the government is doing wrong. They convey the policies and programs of the government to the people. They convey the problems of the people to the government. It means they play the role of a bridge between people and the government. So the role of opposition is very, very important. Third thing is the government gets valuable feedback. Valuable feedback from where? From the Parliament. While debate goes on any topic, and the representatives in the Parliament, whether they are from the opposition or from the ruling party, they speak about different topics at different times, and their speeches reflect the opinion of the country in a way. Okay? Then the fourth thing is approval of the Parliament is crucial for the government. If government wants to take any decision, then approval of the Parliament is compulsory. Without approval of the Parliament, the government cannot do anything. So, the Parliament is very, very crucial here. The opposition party. As I told you, the opposition in the Parliament, what is the opposition in the Parliament? All the political parties that oppose the majority party or the coalition government formed are called opposition. Now, the opposition political party, the largest amongst the opposition in the Parliament, is called the opposition political party. And the leader of the opposition, it means the leader of the opposition has got very good reputation in a democratic country, in a parliamentary democracy. We consider the leader of opposition as the provisional prime minister. The role of the leader of opposition is very, very important in a parliamentary form of democracy. The role of opposition. The role of opposition is very important. As I told you, the healthy functioning of the government, the role of opposition is very crucial. The opposition highlights the drawbacks in the policies and programs we have already discussed. The opposition mobilize popular support for their own policies and programs. On one hand, the opposition parties, they mobilize people against the wrong programs and policies of the government. On the other hand, they mobilize people for their policies and programs so that in coming elections, they could go to the people, they can go to the people and appeal to the people to vote for them. Number 4, bridge between the people and the government we have discussed, because the opposition parties convey the policies and programs of the government to the people and the problems of the people to the government. So they play the role of a bridge between the people and the government. C, law making. Who are the people in the parliament? The people in the parliament are the representatives of the people, directly elected or indirectly elected. A significant function of the parliament is to make laws. It is the highest law-making authority in a country. The representative democracy cannot produce perfect reflection of society. Why? Because in the society, people belong to different caste, creed, language, region, religion, financial status, and so many things. Number 3, historically marginalized people must be given adequate representation. And for that purpose, we in our parliamentary form of democracy do have reserved seats for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes to give them adequate representation in law making. Law making, some more important things, who are the people in the parliament. Then third important thing, as we discussed earlier, reservation of seats in the parliament for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. The next is to represent Dalit and Adivasi interest in the parliament. The government includes ministers from these sections of society in the government. Then reservation for women, still debated. Of course, at local self-government level, the people of India have decided through their parliament to give 33% reservation to women, but that is limited up to the local self-government system only, the Panchayati Raj and municipality and municipal corporation. The proposal for 33% seat reservation in the parliament is still under debate, still pending. Bill. What is a bill? Any proposal for making of a law is called bill. Bill is of two types, money bill and ordinary bill. Ordinary bill can be of two types, government bill and non-government bill. Ordinance. What is an ordinance? An order issued by the president when the parliament is not in session, it is treated as a law. It is to be approved by the parliament to be a law within 6 months since the date of its issue by the President of India. We need a parliament. Of course, we need a parliament. We are a parliamentary form of democracy, so we need a parliament. But we need a parliament because the parliament functions in different ways, because the parliament performs so many functions, because we elect our representatives to the parliament and our representatives on our behalf form the government, run administration for our welfare, to strengthen our democratic values.